Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so thrilled to be joined by the fantastically talented Jurnee Smollett to talk all about the HBO series Lovecraft Country. And I wanted to start by talking about the genesis of building Letty for you, and particularly when you're playing a character with so many beautiful complexities. What are the first details that you start honing in on and building for a character like her?
Oh, it's a great question. For me, yeah, I for sure started with the clues in the script. The very first scene in which you meet her, you learn so much about Letty. Just in that very first scene, there's so much information compacted. And there's all these contrasting ideas at play, which fascinate me with characters because I don't think you can really build dynamic, dimensional characters that are one note. They have to have these contradictions and this real inner struggle. And so you meet her and, you know, you have a Black woman living at the intersection of multiple identities, Jim Crow America, 1955, and clearly has dreams and desires. One, my question was, oh, what drives that desire? What gives her the audacity to dream? Because dreaming, you think about that era, you think, wait, how did they even dream? How do they have, the ability to not place limits on their imagination, to dream beyond their circumstances, because we are so indoctrinated that our indoctrination naturally places limits upon our imagination, right? And so you learn in the very first scene, she clearly has a bond with her sister, clearly loves family. And the way they play is just so natural and beautiful, right? On stage. And yet she hasn't been in touch with her for months. And her sister doesn't know where she just kind of come in from. You learn that she needs her sister, but habitually abandons her. You learn that she can't afford to buy stockings, but has dreams of pioneering into an all-white neighborhood and living in a house. You learn that even though she loves family, she didn't go to her mother's funeral. And so I was just interested instantly intrigued and curious about a woman with all those things at play. So that just those were the initial nuggets that I was working with that led me on my path of discovery. And from there, yeah, you just layer in all the other truths of her. It's really just about what is true for Letty, and of course you have to, I did a lot of research and work like this really requires that you understand the historical context to which your characters are placed in, the gender justice that she's fighting for, the racial justice that she's fighting for without even fighting. Her very existence is a fight for that. So yeah, the research, you just really layer, it really informs all of those choices of who her true character is.
And when you're playing a character like her that has all of those complex juxtapositions and contradictions to her, like you were just describing, with particularly when it comes to family relationships, how does that really change a lot of the complexity of your performance? Because there's so much subtext that you can build into every single moment and every single relationship dynamic with her then.
I mean, it's not that it changes, it just informs it more. Letty absolutely believes in every choice she's making. She's not aware of the contradictions. We're not, as human beings, aware of our push and pull in relationships. We just operate in the truth of the moment, right? And for me, I always start with the choices the character makes, because I think true characters revealed when they're forced to make a choice under pressure. I don't think true characters necessarily revealed through what we say about ourselves, right? And so what choices is Letty making right now? She buys a house in episode 3 and moves her sister in because she does want to heal that relationship and repair the relationship. But it's not that simple, because she doesn't tell her the full information. She doesn't tell her that she was using the money she thought she got from her mother's inheritance to buy it, you know, she still has to do it in her way, right? So it's still on Letty's terms. The relationship is not a real relationship when it's only on your terms, right? It's you're still she's still in this tug and pull between surrendering and sacrifice. She's not really gonna surrender all of herself to her sister, right? And so I often with characters work with, different relationship patterns, the abandonment issues, the parentified child that she was. She's a woman who's trying to live her full womanhood unapologetically, but never was allowed to actually have a childhood. Her mother habitually abandoned her. And so what does that do to a person? Well, that informs your eyes. You see the world through the parentified child for the rest of your life, unless you were to go and like do the real healing work, which Letty, was not doing, obviously. It's funny because Alfre Woodard, she's a mentor of mine, and that's one of the things she always says in approaching a character. You just got to find the eyes. You just got to find the way that they see the world, because we all see the world in very different ways. No two people see the same painting in a museum the same way. We will see the same TV show, watch it at the same time, and not see the same TV show.
No, that's wildly, wildly true. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the way in which Misha Green plays so beautifully with genre and really takes that idea of genre and not just with horror, but flips it on its head to the point where when you look at all of the episodes, they all have such individually unique voices and tones to them. And did that alter anything or inform any of your choices in terms of the tone of your delivery? Or did the two of you have any conversations about how you wanted your performance to play into the shifting tone and voice of the show?
I think with characters, it's particularly in this format of television, you have the beauty of exploring the character over various tones, various colors, various situations. So inevitably, you get a deeper dive into how she reacts in different situations. But from an actor's point of view, it's not like you modulate based on the situations. You respond truthfully from her source, from her core, from her truth. And so it's just about staying loose. It's just about staying unblocked, It's just about, for me, allowing my emotional life to have full access of my instrument, and that you can play the truth of the moment regardless of standing in front of a ghost, trying to exercise everyone, including yourself, or if you're, standing in front of a man who you love and you feel so betrayed or heartbroken because you find out he's trying to leave back to Florida, and why can't I hold on to him? Why does he keep, all the shit we've been through? Why does he keep running away? Why is he avoiding this? So regardless of the situation Letty's in, there's always going to be the truth in how Letty sees that situation, how she responds to that situation. So I don't modulate it based on, what's happening in the script. You got to go deeper. or bigger, wider, whatever that is.
Was that very much true for the fact, like you said, there's moments where maybe you're in front of some sort of monster or a ghost creature, and then at the same time there's also the fear-driven situations of being chased out of to the border of a sundown town as the sun is literally setting right in front of your eyes. And through that we really get to explore Letty's fight or flight and that instinctual thing where you never know how you're going to respond to certain situations, but we see her placed in so many different instances of it. And so what was it like really figuring out her fight or flight instincts?
It's interesting because I worked with a few archetypes with Letty, and one of them is the warrior inherently in her. That shows up in those moments of choice, right? You either Flea? Is that a cat? I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you either, true character, what is it revealing about her true character? You either run towards the danger or you run away from it. What, you know, and that's essentially her true character is to run into it. Not because she's not afraid, she's absolutely terrified, but not running into it is just not an option. It just doesn't occur to her, you know. It's just not an option, and that's the warrior in her. But also, you know, there's the mother in her who needs to, you know, there's a beautiful transition that happens to Letty when she begins to love something more than herself. And when that happens to the individual who is so individualistic as Letty is, you know, she starts off so I am me, you know, what do I need? How do I get it? And then begins to have a real tug and pull between self and community, self and tribe, right? And we see her struggle with that throughout, but I think, yes, something happens to her when she realizes that she cares about something outside of herself more than herself. And that's the inner struggle, that's the tug and pull, which is just so beautiful to play with.
And within that idea as well, there's the fact that, you know, going back to those family relationships, that she has been in this cycle of pushing people away and trying to find where she belongs in different spaces. And then with Atticus, there's that shared trauma that they have that really creates a unique setting of intimacy between them. And so how did you and Jonathan Majors work together to figure out the specificity of what that shared bond was going to be and what was going to come out of the idea that they both have a lot of secrecy that they share with each other, and that idea of trauma that also brings them together, and how that creates intimacy?
Yeah, I mean, loved working with Jonathan. He's such a beautiful artist. And I think, you know, we had like an initial conversation around them being soul tied. Once they experience this new information, once their worlds have been turned upside down, as they have from this road trip that they go on in the pilot, and their lives are forever changed, absolute change bonds them together, you know. And that's the soul tie that happens through this trauma, this secret that they have that they can't share with anyone else. But beyond that, it wasn't much talk between Jonathan and I. It was doing. You know, we each have our own rituals, our own process, how we attack our characters, and it's just about just showing up on the day, and to have someone who is so present in every moment, you know, that you're just reacting and listening to and responding. You know, and then the text is just so beautiful and rich. And so, yeah, it's almost like we just had to trust it. You trust your instrument, you trust your partner's instrument, and then you just go for it. And beyond that, you know, I think iron sharpens iron, you know, and so yeah, there would be books we'd share with each other, or facts, or, you know, world and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's what we found, such a kindred creative spirit in being able to work together, because it's almost, there's more beauty in the unsaid and the unspoken, you know, in the surprise in the moment. You don't want to tamper with that too much. So yeah, we didn't over talk. This is what Jonathan says. You don't want to explain the poem, you know.
But within that, I do love how the two of you, it sounds like, would go to each other's trailers, no matter who was starting their day first, that the two of you would kind of sit with each other and talk through some of the stuff. So with that idea that you were leaving a lot of it up to the moment to just really feel it in a scene, what were the types of conversations that the two of you would have at the beginning of days before you went into filming?
I don't even know if they were they rarely were like conversations. Most times they were prayers, interestingly enough. It became a very interesting ritual. You know, Uncle George started so many rituals with us in the pilot. Courtney B. Vance, the genius actor that he is, started, you know, the fist bump before every single take. It didn't matter if we were starting from the opposite ends of the forest. I mean, the fist bump, how dare you start this take without the fist bump? It just wouldn't happen. But I think the morning times were more so, they grew into this really interesting manifestation of spirit. You know, our characters are in a spiritual warfare. And so, and the show is so rich with spirit and legacy, and it's very ancestral. So there was the sharing of that, I think, that it kind of grew into in the mornings. But it's not like we were sitting in each other's trailers rehearsing. Only time we did that, actually, that I remember, was the language of Adam. Woo! That kicked our butts. Yeah, you know, we definitely did rehearse that. We rehearsed that in the trailer. We rehearsed it on set, just literally opposite ends of, you know, just giving it to each other, back and forth. Fadalam Dulan Saran Nasta, like just
you still got it.
You know, just spitting it back to each other, and people walking by being like, these crazies, you know. But yeah, I don't really remember us dissecting too much. It's about doing the work, the invisible work. I know for me, you do the invisible work. You do the visible work, and then you show up and try to and pray and surrender that it actually becomes invisible.
And with that language, you know, that moment in your performance is so phenomenal. Did you find that level of fortitude that you had to deliver that dialogue with in the moment when you were shooting it, or was it something where you played around with it a little bit before? Because like you said, that was kind of the one piece of text that you did want to work with a little bit in advance.
I tend to try to avoid locking in a performance. There's so many elements that are necessary to respond to on the day. And you want it to feel fresh and exciting and spontaneous and immediate. And so I remember I had no idea how Jonathan, for instance, with the exorcism scene, I had no idea how he was going to attack the being possessed by the Hiram Epstein ghost, the spirit. And so there's no real way to actually, you got to respond to that. So how am I going to really lock in anything without that massive piece, you know? And so, for instance, with the exorcism scene, it was, you got all these different elements working, and the wind and the spirits, the ancestors. And there were so many things that occurred to me in the moment of doing that scene, that some of the dialogue is not just Letty saying it to them, it's Letty saying it to herself. You know, when Letty says, she's conjuring the spirits of the ancestors to fight with her. And she says, you're not dead yet. You can still fight. That's to her as much as it is to them. She is calling upon that real ancestral strength, and surrendering to that, and being willing to face this head on, because what other option is there? Death? Or does she stay in the in-between where she's not living or dying? That's not an option either. And so, you know, after I did it, actually, it was Misha who came up to me and said, it just occurred to me, when you said that, she's saying that to herself. And it's funny because that was the take in which it dawned on me too, that this is not just conjuring to them, I'm conjuring So it's interesting. There are those moments that you discover, even no matter how much text work you've done, no matter how much research you've done, it's beautiful when it happens on the day. And you discover deeper meanings just by being in it, right? And just surrendering to it.
I also wanted to talk about that first scene in the music performance that you touched upon earlier, because I've heard you talk about how, singing and performing musically had become something that you really just kept for yourself versus ever doing it in front of other people prior to shooting that scene. And so did you find that having the opportunity to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, but doing it through a caricature was actually a beneficial way to step into that space in front of other people?
It's exactly what you said. It's beautiful the way you summed it up. It's so true. I was able to have more courage to do the things I hadn't done before by stepping into Letty's shoes. For Letty, it's it's free flowing. It's freedom. It's expression. It's all the things that I desire to have. Right. I express it in my shower, or in this house when no one's around. But music is such a essential part whenever I build a character. Finding their rhythm, finding in their voice, in their walk, and all that stuff, the music of life, but also just inspiring me in my characters as well. Like Nancy Wilson was a massive inspiration for Letty. And so, yes, absolutely. But that is one of the very selfish reasons why I am an actor. It's like I am so blessed. I get to lose myself and live all these lives and bring all these women out of me, that I'm kind of too afraid to do in my real life.
I love it. And then I also wanted to ask you about the costumes, because there's so many really beautiful and stunning looks. But beyond that, for Letty, the costumes tell such a story. And, there's moments where there's a lot of uses of red and like really strong and vibrant colors. And then there's ones where there's slightly more pastel uses, and it really helps to tell her narrative arc and journey. And so I just wanted to ask about your collaboration with the costume department and putting together a lot of those looks, because it is a collaboration with the costume department. As much as they come in with really strong ideas, they're also looking to you as a performer who's inhabiting this character for their inner world as well.
Absolutely. It was such a fruitful collaboration with our genius costume designer, Dana Pink. Every single look was intentional. And there's things I could point out to you that you may not even notice, but it was always about, for Letty, her dignity is something you will not rob her of. And it doesn't matter where she's at in life, how broke she is. If it means she's going to take that curtain and steal the curtain from that hotel room that she's sleeping in and make a fabulous skirt out of it, she's going to do it. Right. And so I researched a lot about, just our folks, our community in the 30s and 40s. I mean, they were like, potato sack dresses that they would make from potato sack bags. And so this spirit of necessity, the spirit of, I'm gonna just make it happen, is very much so the spirit that Letty has. But also it's her armor. And so when is her armor weak? When is her armor strong? How is she, what does she want to share of herself in that moment? What does she need to feel this? And it was also about playing it down in moments, right? Because she just, for instance, I remember, we tried on probably more different outfits for Letty post jail in episode 3 than any other outfit, because for me, it was just so important for it to feel like, no, she didn't get out of jail and go put on a fabulous dress. She is broken in this moment. She is wounded. She is a wounded animal in this moment. And so how do you do that? But then what would Letty actually have in her closet? She's not going to have some sweatpants in her closet. She's not going to have a white t-shirt just So it's just, again, that tug and pull of what's truthful for this moment, but then also what's truthful for what she actually has access to, which was beautiful, because I also love, I'm the kind of person that I don't want to be pretty all the time in a character. It's like, ain't nobody, don't. We want to say we woke up like this, but it's not true, And so, again, it just comes back to playing the truth of the moment. Someone doesn't get out of jail and go put eyeliner on necessarily. Maybe they do, and that's a strong choice too. But we got to make sure that this is the choice we're making, and we're making it for a very truthful reason, not just because we don't want to see Letty that way. You know what I'm saying? And so working with the hair, makeup, and costume department, those were all the questions we were always inspecting of where is she right now in her arc? Like, what is she truly feeling? And I'm the person, I journal as my character, but I also try to know every single thing about her. What kind of sheet she sleep on? What does she make for breakfast? Does she eat breakfast? Like, all those questions just help inform where they are at in the narrative.
And when you look back at everything that you've achieved and accomplished in your role on this series, what is it that makes you feel really proud in reflection of the work that you did?
Pride is something I try to avoid, honestly. But no, I feel so grateful and blessed to be able to be the vessel through which Letty could come out of and come through. Acting for me has been a mechanism for growth, for survival, honestly. And so it feels like I get way more out of the experience of stepping into Letty's shoes than, but also I feel incredibly grateful to see how it's resonated with folks, to see how not just Letty, but Atticus and Montrose and Hippolyta and Ruby and, Gia, all of the characters resonate on such a deep level with the viewers, which you never know how that stuff is gonna turn out, and you don't go into it thinking about it. But I think there's a real appreciation for the spirit of legacy, the spirit of, celebrating our story, and our stories, and that we were not just victims, we're survivors. I stand here, or sit here, the product of survivors. My mother is a Black woman. My dad was a Jewish man. I come from survivors, okay? Like, I'm here because my folks knew how to trudge along and not just like survive, how to thrive. And I think that's what that's one of the things folks have responded to about Lovecraft Country, is the spirit of warrior, is the spirit of survivor in it, in which we can hold space for our trauma and our triumph at the same time, without putting more emphasis on the tragedy than we put on the triumph.
Yeah. And I think that everything that you just said is exactly why it is such a phenomenal series, and your work in it was such a joy to watch. And thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.